What is up, my hobby boys? Welcome back to yet another video here on the Hobby Gremlin channel. Today we are going to be making yet another mosaic, and this time we're going to be making one of my favorite cards, Red Eyes Black Dragon. Just pulled one from the Korean set the other day, Legend of Blue Eyes set specifically. Pretty cool card, very happy to have pulled it. So to celebrate, we're going to make this mosaic just to honor it a little extra. Kind of sucks that the middle there's got a bit of a print scratch on it. Can't be helped though, it was pulled that way fresh from the pack. Anyway, we're going to use this as a reference to do our sketch first of all. As always, that's what we start with, the sketch. And if you guys are curious about the materials, we'll get into all the materials as we go along for each individual stage. That way it's easier to keep track of everything you need. So start off by doing the sketch. As usual, just pull out a pencil, whip it out, start drawing away. A little hard to see right now, but don't worry, it gets clearer in a minute. Start off very light on the sketch, that way you can edit it, really easily. But unfortunately, when you do that on footage, it doesn't exactly show super clearly. But I've already filmed the next video, and on that one I used a different pencil, which makes it a little bit clearer for you guys to see what exactly it is that I am drawing as I go along. Anyway, so here, as you can see, I'm just sort of drawing out the different shapes of the red eyes vaguely, and now I am beginning to, with markers, color them in. You guys don't have to do this stage, but it really does help to just kind of keep track of what's what, because with pencil there's not a whole lot of contrast, and it can often become difficult to tell what exactly you're looking at when you get into the later stages and you start to lay stuff down. You don't want to deal with, the issue of essentially not knowing where to put your stuff down, because even if you got your reference right next to you, it's just, you want to be able to see all the little divisions and stuff, especially on something like the red eyes here, which has all these different little plates on his body. So and then I just kind of lay down a bit of a background here. It's just random colors, really. There's nothing special going on. Do a little bit of outlining after. So now that the sketch phase is done, we get into the supplies for the rest of the project. So we need an X-Acto knife, pen, some tape, some scissors, and some super glue for if you make any mistakes. Then we choose the cards that we're going to cut up. Just kind of look at what sort of colors you've got on the body or whatever you want to make, and choose the colors ahead of time, because you're going to have to cut them up like what I'm doing right now. So I want to start with the whites and blacks and grays, because that's what the main body is composed of on the red eyes. And that's what I do. I just begin to cut up a bunch of blacks and random whites and grays. Just being crafty with it, taking them from various different cards, from the borders of various different cards, from the actual sort of portrait area itself, and from all sorts of other things. So, just be crafty with it. Just look around, find what matches. Next up, put the tape down, the double-sided tape, on the actual project itself, like on the paper, and cut off the excess. Boom, 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 ba-da-da-da, bang. Okay, it's all done. Next up, we're just gonna pull off all of those layers of wax paper there, the protective layer, of course, because you've got to do that if you want to stick anything to it. And we're gonna start laying down the outline. You can also lay down on this one some of like the interior area at the same time if you have some of those colors cut up already. It's not really gonna affect anything too much. But you kind of want to focus on doing the outline mostly, just so you can kind of define the overall shapes and make sure that you don't end up having the shapes kind of run into each other and create a blob by accident. In my case, since this red eyes here is mostly monochromatic, it's all black, white, and gray, I'm kind of just laying everything in at the same time, with the main focus being on the outline. But you can do it essentially however you want, as long as you get that outline in there. You really do need an outline, because it's kind of what helps to define the character and to make it stand out more in the foreground, as opposed to making it kind of look like it is one with the background. You really don't want that to happen. Otherwise, you kind of end up with something a little bit like the Karibo that I made the very first time I did one of these projects. And if you guys want to see what that looks like, you can go to the very first video I did on this channel. It didn't come out that good, so yeah, don't do that. Just make sure you have an outline. I know it's really annoying, and that's why I didn't do one on the first one, on the Karibo. It takes a lot of time. It's painstakingly slow to do, and it requires quite precise work. But Once you do it, I think you'll find that it's very valuable and it creates a nice effect which makes your character pop out. So for a little while, we're just going to continue with this process, and because of that, I'm just going to kind of drop out the narration here, and we will meet again once we get to the next part of the process. Okay, so now that most of the main body is laid in, it's time to start cutting up some of the holographic cards to make the background and various holographic portions of the Red Eyes. There are a bunch of different little kind of cracks in his armor, essentially, that have a bit of a glow effect that I like on the original card, and so I'm going to keep going with that. I'm also going to give him a glowing eye. And most importantly, I'm going to make the entire background holographic with varying different degrees of lights and darks to add a sort of depth to it. As you can see here, we're starting with the darker portions of the holo here. And I'm going to kind of make a vignette, which is essentially a frame for the character. It's kind of like, I don't know, for people who aren't familiar with what a vignette is like if you've ever seen a photograph that has added shadows around the edges to kind of create a frame of the subject. That is what a vignette is. Also, out of a blue holographic card, which I've cut up, I craft the horns and the claws and the shoulder pad type things and the little cracks in the armor. But unfortunately, that part of the footage got lost when I turned it into a time lapse because I guess it was just too quick. It didn't take very long to inlay them, and so it kind of just ended up being like one frame or something of the time lapse. I've also begun to add in the sort of flames coming out of the Red Eyes' mouth and engulfing his body in those flames as well. That sort of lighter holographic color for the flames will help it stand out from the background, which is a darker holographic color as I talked about earlier. And it will also stand out in contrast with the blue of the horns and such, as you can see. Although there is kind of so much holo on this that it kind of ends up blending together a little bit more than I had anticipated. But I'm liking the look of it so far, and we're getting pretty close to the end of this process. So, we have now completed the vast majority of the work for this project. Thank God, it took forever. And we are doing the back now, because I've decided I want to add at least something on the back which will help to stop the card from bending, because when you're using things like UV resin, which harden the front of the project, it can often cause it to bend in that direction as the UV resin slightly shrinks. Now, I've got some good UV resin by a company called Padico, and I really like the way that works. It doesn't really shrink much, but it does shrink a tiny bit. So I'm going to use this back of the card as a way to kind of resist the pull to the front. It'll just kind of make the back a little more sturdy. And so I kind of just cut up some cards and lay them all down. And then I decide, actually, you know what? I want this card to be the size of a regular Yu-Gi-Oh card, so it's easier to play with if I do end up ever using it in an actual match, like as a token card or something along those lines. So I just kind of take some measurements and cut off the edges. I really don't recommend doing it this way. From now on, I'm actually going to cut it at the very beginning of the process when it's just a piece of paper. It'll save me some time in terms of actually adding the mosaic on the front and whatever else. But anyways, we're done here, and wow, looks pretty freaking good, I say myself, although I did make it, so I'm a little bit biased, but hey, I like those sparkles. Anyways, time for the UV resin. This is one of the most fun and also stressful parts of the process because it can be very scary and do a lot of damage to the card if you do it the wrong way or have a bad product. Thankfully, I have a good product now and I've got a pretty good handle on how to do it, so I'll show you guys how I do it. I lay a bunch of the UV resin down, and then I just begin to kind of push it around with a Yu-Gi-Oh card that I've cut up during the process of making this. I use it as like a, almost like those things that you use to clean showers. I don't know the name of those things, like a squeegee, I think they're called. And I just kind of push it around, then I torch it, and I put it in the UV lamp to harden it. By the way, the torch, when you torch it, is just to make sure you get all the bubbles out. But yeah, just gotta wait about, I think about a minute for it to harden. It can be a little longer sometimes. You really want to make sure you get it fully cured, and if it's not fully cured, it'll be a bit sticky. So if you take it out and it still feels a bit sticky, it is not fully cured, put it back in. And also, don't get the UV resin on your hands. So, it's all done, we pull it out, and...
Go! Red Eyes Black Dragon!
This is what the fully UV resined Red Eyes Black Dragon looks like. Honestly, I think it came out pretty damn good. I hope you guys do too. And I'm really liking that little inlay I put in the center of the back of the card. You can see that it's got some sparkles. Anyway, thanks for watching today's video, everybody. I hope you guys will give this a shot too. And I hope you'll come back and watch more soon. Thanks. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Just kind of like something I gotta say. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.